Welcome back to the podcast. So this week I'm going to talk about a subject that many of you may fear, oh my days, is he really going to go there? But I am. And it's all about cold calling. So the question I'm going to ask today, is cold calling still appropriate in 2024? I'm recording this in early 2024. Is cold calling still appropriate in 2024? And you might be thinking, I want you to think about listening to this podcast from two perspectives. I want you to think about it as the perspective of someone selling something. So that's maybe what we're actually trying to do. But I also want you to think about it from a buyer's perspective. And I'm also going to talk to you about the buyer's side of things as part of this process as well. So I want you to just have an open mind and think about it from a buyer's perspective as well. But let's first talk about cold calling. So the idea of cold calling. Firstly, I don't like the phrase cold calling. I call it targeted calling, but I'm conscious that the whole world calls it cold calling, so that's where it is. What it means, obviously, is picking up the phone and speaking to someone that you don't know and trying to organise a conversation, a meeting, trying to sell them something, or have a conversation with them there and then. Many people used to see cold calling as trying to be someone to sell something to someone over the phone. Now, I think if you are trying to sell something specifically over the phone to a person you've never met before directly, I think that is not going to work. I don't see many people, especially if you're in a wholesome industry, doing that. Trying to sell something over the phone to get someone to give their credit card to you, if you've had no communication or no contact with them before, then I don't think that method works. And it's certainly a method I wouldn't be advocating for organisations right now. If you are trying to book up an appointment, which is what most people try and do, or book up a demo, or book up a meeting, then I think that's fine. But I think your ability to try and sell something directly, someone that's never met you, is going to more likely make people around that person concerned around, whether you're trying to scam them or act fraudulently with them. So here's the thing around cold calling. Cold calling or targeted calling, but cold calling is still a great method to use. And people might think, why do you think that, James? Why is your driver behind that? It's because of a number of reasons why I believe it still works. The first thing is this. Stats show it still works. So there are tools like Lusher and Cognism that show the data that literally, I think it was like nearly just under 5% of cold calls will actually engage in a conversation with someone and open up a dialogue. So firstly, it does still work. People do still pick up the phone. Now, of course, it's harder than it was before. Of course, people are not in the office as much. It's harder to get access to people's information and to even get through to people. But there are other tools, like I mentioned, sort of Lusher and Cognism that can get you access to data. And if you do have a conversation with someone and you manage to pick up the phone and they pick up the phone to you, then it can work. If, that's the big if, you do it in the right way, which is the bit we'll come on to in a moment. So cold calling does still show that it works. But the second point around this is it doesn't work. It works when you are able to pick up the phone and have a conversation, but it also works only when you are very targeted. So this is why I call it targeted calling rather than cold calling. If you are literally opening up the yellow pages and trying to go from A to Z, which is what I did when I was a double glazing salesperson, which was doing cold calls, that form of selling, I think, is a complete waste of time, and there are better ways to engage. If you're doing that form of selling now, I think you're wasting time, and I don't think that's an appropriate way of doing things. But if you, however, have a service that you sell to, and this is more probably applicable to businesses that sell to other businesses, if you have a service that you sell that is quite unique and you're quite a new company, and you know that you solve a specific problem for a specific audience, then I think it's a really important thing for you to do to try and make those people aware that you can solve their problem. And to be able to pick up the phone, especially the chance of them knowing about you, unless you've embarked on some marketing or some other activities, which you may still have done, which is fine, is likely to be small, especially if you're a new company and you're new to a space in a big industry. So if you don't pick up the phone and have a conversation with someone, or try and reach out to them about what it is you do, how are they supposed to know about you? Now, the reason I call it targeted calling is, let's say your service is a piece of software that targets IT directors of manufacturing firms. And let's say your particular software is able to give them a saving, a saving of 35%, for example. And if they don't know about you because they're busy people with busy lives, you're doing a bit of a disservice by that. You could be saving them 35%, whatever the figure is you save, and they're going through their life not knowing you exist. And therefore, if they did know you'd exist, then they could actually see that you could make those savings happen. They'd be interested to know what it is, then who you are. So when you are specifically targeted at talking about an issue or a problem that you know that a specific audience of people has, then I think picking up the phone and having a conversation with them is definitely the appropriate thing to do. But if you do it in the right way. Now, obviously, if you don't do it in the right way, then you will fail. But if it's targeted at a specific audience, I even say to sales teams that I work with that I actually think it's your duty. If you deep down know, if you're running a business that you know you can help someone solve a particular issue, for example, the critical that's going on in their world, it's your duty to pick up the phone and actually have a conversation with them. Now, I give you an example of that. I, for example, want to help ambitious financial services companies grow their business and help them with their sales teams and grow the way they want to be. And I know that I can make a difference in the world of those people. So I will happily pick up the phone and talk to some of those leaders because it's my duty to have a conversation with them and say, look, I think you're missing out on some opportunities and you have a problem here that you're unhappy about. I want to help you solve the problem. So when it's your duty and focus, you become more inclined to do that, if it's targeted and if it's directed at the right set of people. So if you're focusing on it being as I say, on a broad group of people, don't focus on that. The other point around cold calling, which I think is critical, is to combine it with other media. I've talked about this in other podcasts, but if you're cold calling on your own, then that actually is going to be a challenge potentially because they're going to maybe not be available. They don't want to speak to you right now, whatever reason. But if you approach that with a video, an email, a social message, even a direct mail piece that gets sent to that person that says, I really believe you have this challenge and I want to help you solve that challenge. Can we open up a conversation? And then you pick up the phone and they've already seen your email, already seen your letter, already seen your social messages. They go, oh, that person's there again. Okay, let's have that conversation. So it's cold off the bat is harder, but if you can combine it with other media and make that person, it's that person again, and they're talking about that issue that I do have, or that challenge, that desire of I want to put something in place that I do have that challenge, then it can and still does work. So I think you've got to be aware of the fact that if you are a business that has something to offer and solves a specific problem for a specific audience, how else are you going to reach out to that group of people? Now, at the start of the podcast, I asked you to think about it being now, if a seller as a buyer. Now, as a seller, I know 95% of people listening to this will go, oh my God, the thought of making a cold call, I can't be dealing with that, James. I don't want to do that. It doesn't work. I don't feel comfortable with that at all. And I'll come on to sort of some methods in a moment as to how you can do those calls. But I want you to think about it from the buyer's perspective. So if you were a buyer right now, and let's say you were sitting at your desk with a specific problem that you've had for a while in your business. And let's say someone picked up the phone to you and you answered the phone. So I answered the phone and said to you, oh, good morning, Mrs. So-and-so. I appreciate you're busy and you've not got a lot of time, but I wanted just to let you know why I called you specifically this morning as the managing director of the recruitment firm. And you might go, okay, what's interesting? Yeah, I know recruitment firm owners have this issue and this issue, and the frustration of this issue is it's causing them not to achieve this. How are you finding this challenge, or what's your views on this, or whatever the question they used. If you were the buyer at that point, there would be part of your brain that would be curious if the problem that person who made the cold call approached you with was a specific problem that you had. You may not want to give them much information there and then. You may not say to them, yes, of course, I want to open up a conversation. But you would be intrigued to think, I have got that problem. I have got that issue. This person specifically is talking to me about that challenge. Who are they again? What is this company? What do they do? And it will start the ball rolling down the hill of making you think, I better have a quick look at these companies. Now, if you then start looking at seeing that they sent you an email, or you start looking at their social media, and they look professional, and they've got reviews, and other people like them, and they've got some great content, and then lots of other things you've got to put in place in order to make sure that the call isn't on its own, then you're going to start to be, okay, these guys are quite intriguing. Who are they again? Who is that person again? So the point being, as a buyer, when people talk to us on a relevant basis, that they really understand us and the demographics of who we are and our profile and are targeting us specifically, we are inclined as human beings to be intrigued by that. We're curious. We're like, okay, well, I have got that issue. So I would challenge you as a buyer right now. Now, some of you may say, no, I wouldn't pick up the phone to anyone at all. I wouldn't pick up the phone to anyone, don't want to have a conversation with anyone. I wouldn't do that at all. But my question to you, therefore, is what will you do to be able to solve your problem? You'll probably go on to Google. You'll ask other friends, family. Of course you will. But if the person that picked up the phone was respectful and decent and talked to you in the right way and didn't try and be pushy and use old school techniques, wouldn't you not be curious? And I guess my point is, I think you might say to me, I still wouldn't be interrupted. But deep down, I think you'd be like, okay, this is intriguing that they were able to focus on it in that way. So I believe targeted calling, that you can pick up an approach and focus on groups of people, small groups of people. Let's say you're targeting IT directors of manufacturing firms. If that's where you focus, go and find a list of those 100 people. And there are other tools that I've mentioned out there that you can do that. Go and find a list of those 100 people and make that your targeting list to engage with, and then focus on being able to pick up the phone and have a conversation with those people. But do that once you've done some of the planning and the pre-work that needs to happen before you get into a cold call situation, which is what we'll come on to in a moment. And I think you're going to stand a reasonable chance. You're not going to get every one of those 100 engaging with you and say, yes, so I'm going to work with you. But if you get 4 or 5 of them, maybe 10 of those people going, okay, this is intriguing, 10% hit rate, if your deal size is decent, that's going to be a chance for you to do some business together. And there are opportunities there. So I think it can still work, and it does still work when it's done in the right way, which then leads me on to my next point of what is the right way to do it. So look, there's different schools of thoughts as to how people should approach this and what to do. I'm a big believer in when you're making a cold call that the key thing to do is to be honest and upfront. Try and inject maybe a bit of humour, show your personal side to it, and be really clear about what it is you're wanting to get to and what you're trying to help someone with in the early stage of the call. So that's the first thing, is just prepare that outline well. Again, I have a course where I've covered the outlines of how to do this and how to actually prospect over 90 days. It's my sales plan course, which you can get access to, that if it's done in the right way, can engage, or it may make people say, thanks very much, we're not interested, but at least then you can mark them off your list. So if it's done in the right way, in a positive way, it will work. But the second thing and the third thing that I think affects most people from a sales perspective or sales team perspective is that they don't practice this. So where your calling will fail is if you are not prepared for what might happen. And if you are going to, let's pick up the phone and speak to someone, they're going to say, thanks very much, I'm not interested. Or they're going to say, I'm too busy right now. Or they're going to say, we've already got an existing supplier, or I don't know you, or whatever else. You're going to get what I would call common objections. They're common phrases that your potential buyer is telling you, because at that moment in time, their brain, it's the natural reaction for their brain to say no rather than to look at something that they don't know. They're in fight or flight mode, and their brain is there to protect them. So if you're in that position and you get those common reactions, which are common, which is thanks very much, but we're already taken care of, as a salesperson, you have a choice. Are you in a position where you are training your brain and practice knowing how to deal with that objection so that you can overcome it by answering, totally understand, knew you've been busy, knew you'd have this going on, but that's why I wanted to talk to you? Or are you going to go, oh, okay, no worries, and put the phone down? And most salespeople, unfortunately, in big call centers and big areas like that, are never effectively trained properly. They're never trained to do things in the right way. And they don't know how to respond to the objection in the right response, or to handle what people say, or they've not practiced it in the right way. And so, ultimately, that's why people, think that cold calling doesn't work, is because people haven't been trained effectively on how to do it. So, look, I would say to you this as a sort of towards the end of this podcast. Cold calling can still work. If you're listening to this as a sales manager, you're going to tell me that your team don't want to do it. And that's specifically why, and I'll be very blunt with you, and I never on the podcast try and promote my companies, but that's why I created a company called Growth Resourcing. We created it last year. We have a team of people down in South Africa whose job it is to pick up the phone and have conversations. I've trained them on how to have conversations in the right way to open up doors. And we are already opening up doors for organizations who were previously thought it couldn't happen, and now we're finding leads for them. So if you've got salespeople who say, I don't want to do it, which is highly likely, and you want to have a conversation with someone about at least how it can be done, then I'm open to doing that. And let's reach out and connect with me on social media, or drop me an email at hello@jameswhite.business, and we can chat about that. But the reality is the calls that you need to make, people don't want to do them. But if you are going to get a team in place to do them, then all I would also encourage you to do is to make sure that they are prepared and have practiced of how to react and respond to this. If you put them into a situation where they're doing calls and they don't know how to do it, and they're not trained on how to do it, and they've not been given the practice, and I can come in and help them train you, or you can bring other sales trainers in, but get someone in to help train them. If you do it without that, then the chances are they are going to fail because they're going to do it in the wrong way, and that is going to mean that they're going to get disillusioned and not want to do it anymore. So whatever situation you're in, if you're in a situation where you think it doesn't work, I'll happily prove you wrong. If I can show you it can be proved wrong, as I have done with other clients, then let's have that conversation. But if you think it can work and your sales team are up for it, then get them in to make sure they've had the right practice to ensure that things get resolved in the right way. But cold calling, is it still appropriate in 2024? My whole answer is yes. I was reading an article on LinkedIn the other day that came from an executive that said, I never get anyone call me anymore. What's gone wrong? And the reality is this was a senior person. Of course, they're busy, but his message was, I have no problems if someone wants to reach out to me, but providing they understand me and are relevant to me and get what I'm about and can talk about the challenges I face, I'm open to conversations. So if I think with senior executives are saying that, the chances are you're going to get other people saying the same thing. And not everyone will. You don't have everyone on board. In America, we're about to have the election in America. Donald Trump or Joe Biden, they're never going to get 75% of people liking them. They just need to get 51% of people. So it's about getting the majority on board. And if you can get the majority of people to work and understand and support what you're doing and to engage with you, especially if you're offering that unique service, it's going to work well. So those are my thoughts on cold calling. But I know this is an incredibly sensitive subject and topical subject. So what are your thoughts? What do you think? Do you think my targeted calling approach works? If you're relevant, if you were a buyer, would you buy into that? Or are you thinking, no, it still shouldn't be used in 2024? Let me know. I'd love to know in the comment section of the podcast, or reach out to me. I'm going to start this discussion going on social media as well. Love to get your thoughts so we can get some insights. But those are my views. If someone's going to change my views, it may be in time once robots take over the world, we maybe get to a new place. But right now, in 2024, do I think it's still appropriate? My answer is 100% yes. So look, I always do the podcast. I finish the podcast with an inspirational story. And I wanted to do a story this week of a guy called Thomas Young. Now, Thomas is a man lives near me in where I grew up. My business in Weston-super-Mare in Somerset. And Thomas has just recently been running 46 half marathons in 46 weeks in memory of his son, who for a neonatal unit of his son who tragically passed away. And I think if you look at, there's a great article which we'll share around, Thomas, literally, he's running it in a Superman outfit. His goal was to raise 1,000. He runs 46 half marathons in 46 weeks. Now, I've done a half marathon in Weston-super-Mare and it nearly killed me. So the fact this guy's doing 46, to raise money for St Michael's Hospice in Bristol, I think is an incredible thing. So congratulations to Thomas Young. Huge admiration for him for what he's doing. As I always say on the podcast, be inspired by people. He's got a cause that's so passionate to him, and he's determined to do something to make a difference in the world. And I guess my message to you is, what difference can you make in the world? How can you turn what you're passionate about into being something you can achieve to make you happy and achieve the success you want? So be inspired by Thomas Young. Be inspired by the other inspirational stories that I share. And as I always say to everyone, thanks for listening to the podcast. I'd love you to, share your thoughts on cold calling. If you think it's alive or dead, let us know. But look, as I say, I'd love to be able to help you if you're a business owner looking to wonder actually how I can grow your business and get to where you want to get to. Then let's have that conversation and chat. But thanks for listening to the podcast this week. Please like and subscribe it. Give us a rating if you can. Tell other people about it. But until next Wednesday, I'll see you soon. Take care.